We always think of aging as just wear and tear, right? But what if it's something else entirely? What if the secret isn't just about our DNA getting old, but about a single tiny error that triggers a massive body-wide false alarm? Well, today, let's dive into the amazing immunity theory of aging. Okay, so this whole thing really kicks off with a mystery, and it starts with this little guy right here. Just take a look at this mouse. It's clearly showing signs of aging way too fast. And this led scientists to ask a really wild question. What if this whole rapid aging process could be kicked off by just one single broken protein?
And that mystery, it actually leads us to our first major clue. We're going to look at a super rare disease that, believe it or not, gives us a brand new window into the fundamental process of how all of us age. So that condition you saw in the mice, well, it has a human version. It's called Ruijs-Aalfs progeria syndrome, or RJALS for short. It is an incredibly rare disorder where people show signs of accelerated aging. And for researchers, this was the crucial lead they needed to follow.
So to really get what's happening here, we've got to go deep, like way in. We're zooming right down to the microscopic crime scene that's happening inside our very own cells.
At the very center of this whole mess are these things called DNA-protein crosslinks. Let's just call them DPCs. And trust me, these things are nasty. They're basically toxic lesions that form when proteins literally get glued onto our DNA. And when that happens, they create a huge roadblock for all the machinery our cells need to function.
Yeah, the best way to picture it, imagine someone just jammed a big piece of gum into the delicate gears of your genetic code. Nothing can get through, and the whole system just grinds to a halt.
And this right here, this shows you exactly what I'm talking about. These DPCs are like literal roadblocks sitting right on the DNA strand. They stop the cell from being able to read its own blueprint and, this is the big one, from making copies of its DNA so it can divide.
Now, normally, our cells are smart. They have a plan for this. They've got a dedicated cleanup crew for this exact problem. But in RJALS, that crew, well, they've gone missing in action.
And this chart really breaks it down for us. On the left, you've got a healthy cell. In it, a protein called SPRTN acts like a tiny pair of molecular scissors. It finds these DPCs and just snips them away. The DNA stays clear. But on the right, in an RJALS cell, that SPRTN protein is broken. It's useless. So those roadblocks don't get cleared, they just pile up and up, causing a massive genetic traffic jam.
So you can probably guess what happens next, right? When these roadblocks start to pile up, the cell doesn't just slow down. It starts to completely fall apart. This diagram shows you the chaos. All those unrepaired DPCs, they cause total havoc when the cell tries to divide. The chromosomes can't separate the right way, and fragments of our precious DNA literally just break off and get left behind.
And these lost pieces of DNA form what are called micronuclei. You can picture them as these tiny, unstable bubbles of DNA, just cast adrift inside the cell, completely cut off from the main library of genetic code in the nucleus.
And this is where the story takes a huge turn. This is the big reveal. It turns out the DNA damage itself isn't the real villain here. Nope. The real problem is the body's reaction to it. It all happens in this crazy domino effect. So first, those unstable little DNA bubbles, the micronuclei, eventually they burst, and they leak DNA out into the main part of the cell. Then, an immune sensor named cGAS finds this stray DNA, and it makes a terrible mistake. It thinks the cell has been invaded by a virus. It triggers a powerful alarm system called the STING pathway, which floods the body with inflammatory signals.
Honestly, the perfect analogy for this is a car alarm that gets triggered and just will not shut off. It's constantly screaming that there's an intruder, leading to chronic, system-wide inflammation that damages tissues and, you guessed it, accelerates aging.
And this, right here, gave the researchers an absolutely brilliant idea. They thought, wait a minute, if this faulty screaming alarm is the real problem, what would happen if we could just turn it off?
And get this, the results were just stunning. When the scientists blocked that cGAS-STING alarm in the mice, it not only saved them from dying as embryos, but it also dramatically improved their aging symptoms. The mice were so much healthier, even though their SPRTN protein was still broken and their cells were still piling up all that DNA damage.
In the researchers' own words, these results establish DPCs as a class of DNA damage that promotes chronic inflammation and degenerative aging. I mean, that's it right there. A direct link between a specific type of DNA damage and an immune-driven aging process.
So, this leaves us with a truly provocative question, doesn't it? Is the secret to healthier aging not just about finding new ways to repair our DNA, but about learning how to calm the false alarms from our very own immune system? It's a completely new way to think about the clock of life.